So that kind of killed that. Plus, EA kills studios for no goddamn reason. So one of the biggest things is the People's Republic of China is shown as expansionist, taking advantage of global unrest to increase its power. Although in the first game, Colonel Peng is shown to initially have misgivings about how to use mercenaries. In fact, when you meet him for the first time in the game, he says, mercenaries, wanting destruction, and rampant capitalism, two of the biggest American values. China in the game is kind of shown as being advanced, and even more advanced than the American faction in some areas, and behind in others. And when you get supplies from them, it's like an interesting mix of like vintage Soviet-inspired equipment and then lots of futuristic stuff. And that continues like when you need most of their airstrikes are either like advanced fuel air bombs or old school artillery strikes. So another reason there aren't more of them is has a lot of off-color humor. It doesn't stray into Nukem territory, but things that were only slightly edgy in 2006 are triggering now. An example shown is one of the recurring running jokes, and actually the entire plot of Mercenaries 2 is you're doing a contract for this guy to help him take over Venezuela. Then he betrays you, and when you're escaping your death, you get shot in the ass. Whichever mercenary you're playing gets shot in the ass, and it's not so much that you didn't pay, but it's because he got embarrassed by being shot in the ass. And whenever you meet a new faction, you're like, oh, you're the guy Solano shot in the ass. Like, yes. But there's also, sorry I have to exit out of the presentation proper, but I've had video issues I've been unable to fix. An example of this is one of the first contracts in the second game for Universal Petroleum, which is the petroleum company in the second game. And I've mentioned before, they want you to acquire something, move something from one base to another.
Let me in. I got the guns you lost.
Who's asking?
Nielsen, I'm here for your boss.
All right, you're the Mercelano shot in the ass. Hey, thanks for the gun. But Dr. Rubin, she's got, maybe she don't need you.
I'm not really the negotiating time. Let me in, or I kill you all.
Tell you what, do us one more solid, and I'll buzz you in.
I'm listening.
We need you to retrieve some high-end equipment, classified tech, can't say much. The eggheads at our satellite facility whipped it up. Just get over there, tell them you're there for the Devastator. Bring it here, and we're square.
Devastator's gotta be something cool, right?
Who's do I have to jump in for this guy?
Just keep your eyes on the prize. Dr. Rubin knows about Blanco. This will get you a meeting with her.
Yeah, I love meetings.
They're sending you to a UP defensive position. It's in the middle of a hotspot where BZ and UP are duking it out. I've marked the man in charge.
I'm here for the Devastator.
I am showing the entire mission, but it's like 3 minutes.
Right, over there.
I see it. Unbelievable.
Oh, look, it's a cool tank.
Steal it or blow it up. You have got to be kidding.
Nope.
That's not the Devastator. Keep looking around and you'll see it.
And even plays stupid confusing.
It's like working for Frat.
You wanted to save my Solano. That means you have to ride the little pink bike.
Now this is, I still find this pretty funny. But I can also see if this came out now, Otaku having fits about this. This would not fly today. Especially like if it goes on too long, your support agent starts going, oh, don't scratch it. I don't think it's cute. I want it. Like, really, guys? Really? Right. Another major thing is all the factions are made up of stereotypes. Stereotypes can be good or bad when making a game because you can use them to give flavor, but at the same time, sometimes they can stray into offensive territory. Criminal factions get this the most, but applies to everyone. Although the allies in Playground of Destruction at least get the de facto, or at least get it as the de facto we're the good guys faction. That changes in the second game. It even extends to weapons. The allies get US gear because, oh, the UN is an American puppet. Which is a common thing that gets said by not Americans, but other countries in regards to the US. China again gets a mix of high-tech and vintage Soviet gear. South Korea in the first game gets US gear and high-tech because they're a westernized Asian nation. They must have high-tech. But the biggest defenders are the Russian mafia faction in Mercenaries Playground of Destruction, or every Russian stereotype and every mob stereotype rolled into one. And then the Jamaicans in the second game. But they even go and make not just entire factions, but also individual characters to have those stereotypes. One of them being the Russian pilot you hired in the second game, who is a walking Yakov Smirnoff joke. Even though he's a pilot. And you find him with the Jamaicans.
Hey. Hey.
What do you want?
I'm looking for a jet pilot.
Misha.
Misha's the jet pilot.
I am the jet pilot.
You're the... Who's Misha?
I am. The jet pilot is me. Misha is me. Jet pilot. I fly jets.
You can fly a jet.
Yes, I fly jets. I fly any jet you got. Fly all over the world. Any conditions. Don't matter. Got my own jet.
Right. Let's say you call me once you sober.
I don't sober up.
You don't sober up?
Not if I can help it. You see my jet? You would not fly it sober.
How come you're
To be fair, when you see the jet later in the game, it is a pile of garbage.
I used to fly for the Vezenzua...
The BZ.
The
BZ.
The VZ. I fly for them, but I make mistake.
Mistake.
Little mistake. I drop bomb in the wrong place. Big bomb.
Right. See you later.
No, come back. Was not my fault. Was lieutenant. Gives wrong coordinates. I drop bomb in the right place, but is wrong place. He tries to blame me. Guys with big hats come, but I show them wrong coordinates. Big hats get mad at lieutenant. He gets mad at me. Now I'm stuck here.
The lieutenant wants to kill you.
Oh yeah, wants to kill me bad. But these Jamaicans are so crazy. No one messes with them. I'm safe here.
You'd be safe with me.
Ah!
All right. Let's try this.
Lieutenant is in bunker.
You know where the bunker is?
I know where the bunker is.
Right, so you need a bunker buster.
I have no bunker
That's
buster.
where I come in.
You already came in.
I'm saying I'll get you a bunker buster.
Ah, you do that? And point a little laser thingy so I hit the target and we're in business.
You mean the designator?
Yeah, it's too hard to hit target without it.
All right, I help you bomb this BZ lieutenant back to the Stone Age, and you'll be free to come work for me.
Yeah, simple, no?
Simple. You only have to attack a fortified target. When I was putting together the panel, I was really I didn't have time to set my capture card back up. So I was just trying to find a clip of some of the conversations in Mercenaries 1 with the Russian mob because the two faction leaders their interactions are really entertaining. At one point you walk in and they're having a conversation about how he wants to be they're having a conversation about the Godfather and how he wants to run his operation like it's running the Godfather. And the one guy is the initial leader, who later gets replaced because in a contract because it's the Russian mob. He's trying to make himself look like a mafia don, and then his lieutenant's like stereotypical KGB con criminal. And the lieutenant's just like, why am I putting up with this guy? So, why are these games still relevant? Well, even though they're pretty comedic, they at the time were based on, okay, this is a possible conflict in this region. This is something that might blow up into an actual shooting war. And knowing how modern war works, private security contractors are going to get involved. So it's real world plausible. The first one was created right after we started the war in Iraq, and not long after Bush's Axis of Evil speech. And the view of the war in Iraq was still favorable at that time. So it's like, okay, if things go well in Iraq, there are still bad actors in that speech. Who else would we have to go after? And the obvious answer was North Korea, because North Korea is creating nuclear weapons. So the first game's about a conflict in the Korean Peninsula and a nuclear on North Korea. Fast forward 10 years later, we have a actual North Korea is now nuclear armed, and we've been seesawing back and forth between much improved relations and then going to war with North Korea. And in the first game, it even goes so far as to show that the main antagonist is the crazy son of Kim Jong-il, who has since taken power. Now in that game, President Kim is still alive and somehow not crazy. It's still fiction. They're trying to make the General Son, the main antagonist, look even more crazy. It's like, so you did President Kim, but it's not actually Kim Jong-il, and he's sane. Why is this? You've shattered my reality. Oh, pandemic. So this is still something that pops up. It's still going to pop up probably next couple of generations until North Korea eventually collapses. So you probably play this game like 10 years ago. 10 years from now, and I was still like, oh, this is something that could actually happen. But just some of the cultural references, like, oh, you're blowing up a bunch of stuff, and they're referencing Arnold Schwarzenegger being the governor of California. Like, that that doesn't make sense now, but most of the other stuff will still make sense, including China's part of the Allies, but they're their own thing, they're pursuing their own agenda because North Korea's on their border. They don't want a unified Korea. They don't want a unified Korea right on their doorstep. The reason I created this panel was I was actually listening to the theme song of the second game that they used in a bunch of commercials. It's not actually the game itself, but I was listening to that on a LARP. And I turned on the TV, it's like, oh, there's riots in Venezuela going on. They actually might get rid of Maduro. So in the second game, World in Flames, there's a breakdown in Venezuela and a new leader takes over. Venezuela, when this came out, was kind of teetering on the edge. Chavez was still in charge, but the inflation had begun. The downturn in the economy had begun. Now, the economy in Venezuela is so completely screwed. It's so bad that people can't get basic medical supplies. They can't keep up the infrastructure because the money you're being paid is worthless. You're getting paid a tenth of what it takes to get a loaf of bread. Why even work at that point? And it just got to the point that we almost got regime change this year. And we still might get regime change. So in this game, the US, Russia, and China are all involved in the situation and trying to get it into, in real life, the US, Russia, and China are all involved in this, trying to affect it in their favor. We're obviously trying to support the opposition leader that's trying to get elected and bring sanity back to the country. Russia and China support propping up Maduro because Maduro being in control puts an enemy in our backyard. This has even got to the point that, has anyone seen the new Jack Ryan series? Only one person. Have you seen the second season yet?
I have only seen a few.
I read about the second season, and it's actually more like the Venezuelan president is actually a right-wing nationalist, but
I was with that put aside, but there's a reason they went and made it Venezuela because it's believable, and the Jack Ryan works, Top Planet 2 works, trying to make it believable to real life politics and real life military stuff.
And real life hot points.
What?
Oh, I said, and real life hot spots.
Yeah. The two mercenaries scene did that. They just comedy. Another major thing is the reason another major thing that pops up in this game is oil. Venezuela in real life has more oil reserves than any other country, except maybe us with shale. Now that we've figured out how to do fracking and shale oil. They've got more oil reserves than anyone else. Yet their economy is in shambles. Part of the reason their economy is in shambles is their biggest customer is us, and now we're an exporter of oil.
The economy is in shambles is because of mismanagement, the dependence on oil.
They could get away with that mismanagement because they could sell oil to us, and it would make everyone's pockets would get lined along.
Yes, but it's actually more. It's actually more complex. The problem with Venezuela is more complex than you think. It's for a variety of reasons. It's because of their dependence on oil, some part of mismanagement, and the role of U.S. sanctions in Venezuela.
It is very complicated, but in broad strokes, a lot of the other issues were covered up by the oil. that went away, so all the other problems are laid bare and just get exacerbated. And Mercenaries, World in Flames, it seems like every mission in that game is, oh, we're gonna go blow up an oil refinery. Oh, this contract to capture this general is put out by the oil company in the game, Universal Petroleum. There's other contracts put out by the socialist faction who are upset with the oil company, Universal Petroleum. The leader of the Universal Petroleum faction said, yeah, we're working with the US government and we've been told that the only thing that matters is keeping the oil flowing. The communist faction's working with China and they said, yeah, we're getting help from China because China expects us to give them a sweetheart deal on exporting oil. Still on Venezuela, a big thing about the second game is the antagonist is a populist leader. The new Venezuela leader is a rich businessman who took power on a platform of Venezuela first, pissing off traditional Venezuelan allies like China and creating unrest throughout the country. Not to really get political with U.S. politics, but that sounds like someone. Oh. Now, when this game was made, no one really knew that Trump would get elected, but it's kind of funny that we have a right-wing nationalist leader leading our government now. And if you watch it, as you were saying, if you watch a new Jack Ryan series, they change so that they can make points about Trump. The leader in Venezuela in that show is a right-wing nationalist leader. Another really interesting thing with the first game is it kind of gives a historical perspective on the changing public view on Operation Iraqi Freedom. The first game came out while the war in Iraq was still popular, alongside other titles such as Conflict Desert Storm, because we got this really sympathetic view of regime change in American-led military operations. Lord in Flames came out, however, after public opinion had flipped, and we get a much more cynical view of American foreign policy and its effect on the rest of the world in that game. For example, in that game, some of the executives that you rescue from Universal Petroleum brag about screwing Venezuela out of their oil and say, oh, they were actually paying us to take their oil from them. And then when the mercenaries that were working directly for Universal Petroleum failed because you blew up one of their oil rigs to try to kill the guy who shot you in the ass, who was on it. The Allied Nations, which is the game's version of the UN, gets involved to keep their facilities secure. The AN is clearly an American-led operation. In addition, Executive Operations, who's the organization you work for on the first game, and the Universal Petroleum Mercs and World in Flames are essentially Blackwater. But the former is shown very positively. Like, there's a corporate culture, but when you start taking contracts with the Russian mob, there's like, well, we have a policy against this, but I'm not going to. We have a policy against this, but we're not. As long as the money's good, we're kind of going to look the other way. But don't get into trouble. Don't get in trouble because we're disowning you. Meanwhile, the latter are shown to be unprofessional cowboys. So earlier that, this guy's trying to get in on our gig. We're gonna go make him get the pretty pink scoop to embarrass him. And the best way to like show this is, the best way to put it is, there are definitely good guys in Playground of Destruction, and most of the time they're working for the good guys. Even if Playground of Destruction is a world of grays. Meanwhile, in Immortal Flames, no side, including yourself, are the good guys. Everyone is kind of a narcissistic prick in some way, pursuing their own agenda. Well, that's actually the end of my prepared content. This is thank you for coming. This is the first time I'm running this panel in particular. So, any questions, comments, concerns?
So then, the way I'm reading this is that given that even though the series is fun, that even if a new one was to come out, it would not be the same or have that same soul as it had before.
And when a lot of the jokes probably wouldn't pass muster. Now sometimes you get stuff that still has that old soul, but they cause controversy. An example would be what's the game that was just put out by the makers of Duke Nukem? Ion Fury.
Yeah, that one.
Ion Fury is a lot of fun, but it caused a major S-storm in the gaming medium. A lot of JRPGs, when they get brought over, sometimes would cause controversy because Japan doesn't really care about politics, but the American media does. Like when Valkyrie Chronicles 4 came out, there was a massive firestorm for until the media found something else to get mad about. And another thing is, a lot of these games always turn into the U.S. versus China or South Korea versus China. The Chinese market is now huge. No company really wants to give up that market anymore. And games are explicitly censored, even in the West, so that they get sold in, even the Western versions will get censored so that they can get sold in China and not take off the Chinese government or Chinese consumers.
Isn't this a breach of economic sovereignty and cultural sovereignty? Because we're being affected because companies are now terminally obsessed with attracting the Chinese market instead of catering to the American or North American market.
I'm not sure you could say straight out that it's economic sovereignty, but a lot of it's because while video games were still on the rise before they were fully mainstream, a lot of American companies were kind of tentative to. They were kind of nervous about investing in video games, especially since a lot of them have long memories and they remember the 80s video game crash, which led to 1 million copies of E.T. being buried out in the desert somewhere. China, meanwhile, is like, this is a rising thing. This is going to become popular and stay popular. This is a good way for our companies to make money and eventually gain some sort of control of the content, use it for our own purpose.
Eventually, it's going to get to a point where whole companies are being controlled by Chinese companies, and instead of products being meant for the audience of the United States and Canada, they're going to be meant for China and going to be marketed towards us.
That's a possibility, but I personally, with a bunch of other things, going on in the world economy and in the Chinese economy, I personally think that the Chinese economy is going to crash before then.
Yeah. The other time.
Because they're lying to themselves about economic data. If if the tariffs actually go through, it'll hurt us a lot. It'll crush our economy, but it will hurt. From what I'm seeing, it'll crash China a lot more because we're their biggest customer. Are their economy set up to sell to us?
Also, their economy is currently set up as a quote unquote emerging market, even though they're
a superpower.
Yeah, even though they're a superpower, they still are listed as a emerging. So if that changes, that'll also be another hit as well.
Here's the main issue here. The United States have been dependent on China to make all of our consumer goods because they provide so much cheap labor. China provides so much cheap labor with an authoritarian government that keeps any labor issues in the bin.
But that's also slowly changing because a lot of companies have had issues with Chinese companies stealing their intellectual property. And so a lot of other Southeast Asian countries are benefiting because manufacturing is moving there. And some South American countries are benefiting because, we're going to build a plant here because we can still get cheap labor, but they respect international trade laws, they respect intellectual property laws.
Yeah, the same is happening.
So, but until that becomes more forced, until either these companies stop working, the video game companies stop working with China, or Chinese be pissed off to Chinese enough that they start divesting out of American companies, we're still going to have this issue where a lot of these games are, even if they're intended for an American audience, they're still going to be censored so that they can be sold in China. And it's not just video games with this; it's movies. If you watch the Top Gun trailer, the Flying Tigers jacket that Tom Cruise wears in the original Top Gun, they took the Republic of China flag off the back, even though that's a historical artifact that he wears. But because it's got the Republic of China flag on it, which is the de facto Taiwanese flag, China threw fits. They are helping fund the movie because American action films do well over there. They made it get censored. Yeah. In Top Gun, Top Gun is essentially propaganda for the U.S. Navy.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
The other fun thing is also look where the money's going into it as well, because the parent companies and the ones controlling them, sometimes you'll find the most bizarre facts in that case. With sometimes companies that you think are the most against China or the most distance from them actually end up being owned by a Chinese company.
Like Epic?
Yeah.
Which is wholly owned by Tencent? Or like 60% owned by Tencent? No, yeah, Epic's wholly owned. No, not Epic. Riot is wholly owned by Tencent. Epic's got like 60% ownership by Tencent.
So obviously that's not going to apply for those two companies.
And EA isn't owned by Tencent, but they do have to work with Chinese companies to get their stuff sold. Especially with whatchamacallit, what do you call that genre? What do you call that game? Apex Legends.
Yeah.
Apex Legends actually is still doing okay in China, but they had to partner with Tencent to get it made. FIFA is huge throughout the world, and not in the U.S., but in other countries, the mobile FIFA game is massive, and it's just a massive money maker. That's got to be made in. They've got to partner with a Chinese company to get it made over there because of how Chinese laws work. So, any other questions or comments? Alrighty, guess we're ending this about 5 minutes early.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. I definitely recommend checking out this game. I don't know about PlayStation. I don't know about PlayStation or about PS4 compatibility, but the original Mercenaries of Destruction is on the original Xbox compatibility list for Xbox One, and you can download it. And War in Flames is on the Xbox 360, Xbox One compatibility list. The Xbox game is a little bit on Xbox One is a little bit buggy, however, and I think you can still get them on PC. I don't know if Mercenaries is available on Steam. I'm pretty sure you can get Mercenaries 2 through Origin, if you want to use Origin. Anyways, thanks for coming. I have one more panel later today at 2 p.m. Not for Nonsense to look at Japanese naval history at the Anime Expo. So, if you want to come to that, please do. Otherwise, hopefully we'll see you at another con.